So tomorrow we're getting a PlayStation Showcase, which will undoubtedly be showing off Marvel Spider-Man 2. It's almost hard to believe we've gotten to this point. I know for a lot of people, including myself, to wait for this game and actually seeing something about it has been very painful of a wait. And I have made a few videos like this going over improvements and things I would love to see from this game. So if you guys want to hear the ideas I've mentioned in those videos, I have a whole playlist for it on my YouTube. And I just want to let y'all know for my followers that I will be streaming the PlayStation Showcase with a face cam so you can see my live reaction tomorrow. So if you're interested in that, be sure to stop by. But as you've read by the title, today I just wanted to talk about one final thing that I would love to be improved about this game before the showcase tomorrow, and that final thing is stealth. So without further ado, here's how Marvel Spider-Man 2 can improve the stealth. The first thing is improved scenarios. Now I think the stealth from the previous two games was just fine. It wasn't anything crazy. It was just decent. I don't think it was really a big deal because stealth wasn't really a main focus of the game, unlike an Arkham game. But the stealth was in those games, and I think it has a lot of potential. And I think the best comparison is obviously the Arkham games. Like, when we look at those games, the stealth scenarios in those games have always felt so immersive. And the game made it so that it was, like, nearly impossible to try and beat a room full of armed guards by just using the combat. So that was something that kind of forced you into stealth. And that was because of the guns thing. And guns were a problem for Batman, but guns really aren't a problem for Spider-Man. So there has to be something else that incentivizes the player to actually want to do stealth and actually be forced to do stealth. And so I think the best moment to stem from when it comes for like a reference is the Grand Central mission from Spider-Man PS4. In this mission, if you got caught, it was game over, not only just for the MJ portion of the mission, but also for like Spider-Man. If he got caught, it was game over. And so this is the type of thing that we're going to need for these stealth scenarios. Things like hostage situations or situations where if you get caught, a whole base goes on lockdown and you have to restart. It's those type of situations that actually incentivizes and forces players to do stealth. The stealth in the first two games, majority of the time, always felt optional, which was definitely one of those two games' detriments in terms of stealth. Like, take the underground hideout mission for Miles Morales. This mission could have been a lot better if they added, like, stakes to it. Like, if Miles got caught, the underground base goes on lockdown and we can't get what we need. That would have been really good, but instead we didn't even have to use stealth during this mission, which was pretty immersion breaking. And I just think giving us better scenarios would already give the stealth a major improvement. The second thing is the enemy AI. Now, the enemy AI in a game, whether it's like Arkham or Splinter Cell or The Last of Us, they're never gonna be that intelligent, otherwise games would be like actually impossible. But depending on which game you talk about, they're still very competent, while the AI in Spider-Man actually have like fetus brains. So to improve upon the AI, all they really need to do is like just a couple things. The most important thing is they literally just need to make the AI like look up. Whereas in like if Arkham, if you throw like a batarang or something, the enemies will always look in the general direction of where that thing just came from, which forces players to move. While in Spider-Man, it's more like this. Hey, buddy.
Somebody there?
I'm right here.
Hey! Don't move.
Oh no. He
Hands
got
up.
me.
We got a spider problem. Somebody there?
And you can quite literally shoot a web to split up like a group of two people or something, then web one of those enemies up, and the dude that he was just with won't even hear anything or even question where his buddy just went. They only even start to question when someone's missing after you take out a few people, and they'll start to survey the area or some shit, and sometimes they'll literally just do this.
I'll see what's going on. I've looked everywhere. This smells like Spider-Man.
So to improve the AI, all they really need to do is just improve their brains, eyeballs, and ears. Just make enemies look up when they hear someone get taken out, or when their buddy suddenly goes missing, or if someone gets taken out right behind them, make them turn around if you do it loudly. Arkham had the thing where if you do like a silent takedown or a loud takedown, the silent takedown is slower, which leaves the player exposed to get caught for longer, whereas like the knockout smash is faster, but it also alerts everybody in the area. Most of Spider-Man's takedowns are just quick, fast, and easy, like me if I was in bed with an Instagram model, so they really need to make taking someone out take longer or faster, like how the Arkham games have it, and they need to make exposing yourself feel tense, like a dude with a 3-inch wiener losing his virginity for the first time. And it's things like this that make the player feel consequences for not being patient, and it actually makes the player think. They also need to make enemies have better preset paths so that they like intersect with each other, or even when they're on alert, so that the player can actually even have a chance at facing these consequences. If you've played the Arkham games, I think you know what I'm talking about. In those games, you have to be patient because there's almost always an enemy next to each other, which keeps the player thinking and forces them to be patient. And both games give you a good amount of tools to take people out. But Spider-Man's problem isn't really the gameplay mechanics, it's just how they're balanced. You can clear like a whole stealth section wave in Spider-Man PS4 by just using gadgets, and it won't even be a second thought. I think Miles Morales definitely did a better job with like balancing the gameplay mechanics and enemies during those stealth segments, so it was definitely a good step in the right direction, but it still wasn't anything crazy, as it still had some balancing issues and the invisibility was still pretty broken. And so stemming off this, now I can finally get into my favorite idea slash improvement for this video. Now, for those of you who have played Splinter Cell, you'll know what I'm talking about for this section, but for those of you who haven't, allow me to explain. But real quick, as I stated in the last point of this video, enemies need to be smarter and always looking around the environment so as to make stealth more engaging. And while Arkham did a really good job with this by not making enemies like act like actual real people, the enemies in that game still make you like constantly move from like perch point to perch point and like throughout the environment, because enemies would look up and they were always checking their surroundings. But with Spider-Man, we don't want them to copy Arkham exactly, and that's where I think combining the elements of Splinter Cell and Arkham would allow for a familiar but also new experience. Now on to Splinter Cell. In those games, you can take out like lights and use the shadows as cover, which makes up for the intelligent enemy AI that can see you really easily. Now if Spider-Man was to take this and have enemies always looking around the area and up at the like, you know, the raptors in the ceiling and shit, this would be balanced by Spider-Man using the shadows to his advantage so that we aren't seen every 2 seconds, making the stealth impossible. So they could give us the ability to take out light bulbs ourselves so that we could create our own shadows and also give us preset shadow like places in the environment. They could even have instances where you can't break certain light bulbs so that you have to use like an electric web on like a generator and make it so that that only lasts like 20 seconds, so you have to work in a quick time with the nice little spurt that you just gave yourself. I think using the shadow and light mechanics from Splinter Cell would really be a great addition to the game, and it would also allow for even smarter AI that's balanced by these mechanics. Now for the final part of this video, we have to talk about enemy variety, and I'm gonna keep it a bean. I'm gonna be taking a lot of things from Arkham because obviously Arkham does a really great job with stealth. But the first enemy is the drone enemies from Arkham Knight. I think that's pretty straightforward. If you've played the game, I'm assuming that most of you have, so I don't think I really need to explain that. For the second enemy, I think brute enemies, like Spider-Man has this, but I think they need to be implemented more into the stealth. The third enemy is the heartbeat monitor enemies, so that enemies are more easily alerted to your presence, making stealth more challenging. The fourth enemy type is the disruptor enemies that don't allow you to scan the environment and see stuff through walls. And the last Arkham enemy type that I'm going to take is the enemies that can't be seen with your scan/detective mode usage. Now for the other enemy types that aren't in Arkham, these would be enemies that have like night vision goggles or thermal goggles, so that even when you're using the shadow and light mechanics that I mentioned from Splinter Cell, they can still see you, similar to like the goggle enemies from Miles Morales. The seventh enemy would be Sui bomber enemies. I think you can know what I'm saying there. Now this is actually pretty unlikely because that's a very dark thing, but Spider-Man wouldn't people to blow themselves up, obviously. So these would be a good enemy type that forces you to disarm their like bomber vest before taking them out. The eighth enemy is invisible enemies. Now these enemies would have to be scanned in order to be seen, so you cannot see them unless you scan them, which would force the player to always be cautious and engage with the stealth because those enemies might be around and we just can't see them. And those are about all the enemy types that I think they could really implement into the game. And for the last thing I'll mention in this video, and it's actually a mechanic I think they need to take away, and that's like the stealth or like the safe/danger feature that shows whenever an enemy is safe to take out, because I just think that makes the stealth way too easy. If you guys are interested in all the other areas of improvement that this game could make, again, I have a whole playlist on my channel for that. I know most of this stuff is just speculation and some of it is obviously like not likely to be in the game, but I always find it fun to just suggest my ideas and hear people's thoughts on them, as well as your own ideas that you guys leave me in the comments. So if you have any ideas of your own, be sure to drop them in the comments, as well as letting me know what you guys think of my ideas. I thank you all for watching, and yeah.